Today I'm going to show you how to take one chicken, make it feed 2 people for an entire 5 days, get you through the whole week. So I got this chicken, it was about 18 bucks. It was an organic chicken. I don't know how much it weighed, but it was a nice, decent size. And on night 1, I just did a simple roast. So I got it in a cast iron pan. I sprinkled it with salt, pepper, and a bit of paprika and some garlic powder. And I rubbed it with that and some olive oil. And whenever I roast chicken, I always make sure to season it really well on the inside. And people always ask what the best way to roast a chicken is, like what do you need to, add to it? And honestly, salt. If you just have salt and oil on a chicken, it'll be delicious. You can add some extras. I threw in a couple onion chunks to the inside of this one. Just keep in mind, if you're stuffing chicken, you don't want it to be too full because you need that heat to kind of penetrate and heat through really evenly. So I've got my oven at 350 and I'm loading the chicken in, and I do like to roast it upside down for the first half because the dark meat then is more exposed to the direct heat of the oven, and the dark meat is juicier naturally. So then halfway through, which is about 45 minutes in, I flip it over and then roast it for the second half with the breast side up, so that it gets nice and crispy and brown and golden. And after another 45 minutes, here it is. It's all nice and golden and still really juicy. I can tell that it's cooked because the legs are kind of wiggling in their sockets. But just to be sure, I do like to take a temperature probe to it. This is my favorite one. It's a Thermopop from ThermoWorks. I have a link for that in the description box. So I like to check it in a few places. 165 is kind of the minimum. This one's like 165, 170, 180, so we're good. And then I'm just gonna put it aside to cool down so that I can handle it. So for this first night of dinner, I'm just gonna have the chicken, thigh, and leg. And I'm gonna have it with just a very simple potato and broccoli kind of side dish. So I'm quartering up some potatoes, steaming them. And then the easiest way to do this without dirtying too many dishes is just when the potatoes are almost done, just shove the broccoli right in there in the steamer, in the same steamer as the potatoes, so that they can kind of cook for the last few minutes. Now that the chicken's cooled down a bit, it's been resting for about 20 minutes, half an hour, I'm gonna take it apart. And this is gonna be the biggest work, so I'm actually gonna speed this up a little bit. So I pull off the legs and thighs. Those are gonna be our dinner tonight. And then the wings are going into like the snack slash stock pot. And then I'm just gonna take the skin off the breast because I know I'm not gonna want it when I'm doing the breast. That'll go in the stock as well. And I'm gonna take the breast off the chicken, but I'm purposely leaving quite a bit of meat behind because I want that meat for another purpose. So I'm doing like a bad job of cutting the breasts away, if that makes sense. So now with the meat that's still on the actual chicken, I'm going to just pull it off. This chicken's still surprisingly hot after half an hour or so of resting. It's also nice sometimes to just pull out a fork and actually a spoon. You can kind of scrape the chicken off with the spoon. It's kind of quite handy. So we've got the legs and thighs, we've got the breasts, we've got all the meat that was left on the carcass. I hate that word. And then we've got the bones and like a little bit more meat with the bones, and then just like the onion that was inside and all the drippings. Here's the potatoes and broccoli that I boiled. I'm gonna sprinkle them with a good teaspoon of salt. Potatoes like salt. And I'm just gonna do this really simply with some nutritional yeast. And then some green onions. And then a little splash of cider vinegar because I love vinegar, especially with potatoes. It kind of reminds me of salt and vinegar chips. And then just because it looked too good to pass up, I decided to put a little bit of the chicken drippings right into the potatoes. And then here we go, onto the plate. Dinner for two, a few hemp seeds because it's kind of just nice to have a little texture. And that's dinner. Now we're gonna make the stock. And actually I do this before I eat dinner. All right, day two, this was a super easy one. I basically just took one of the chicken breasts, actually it was about 1.5. Again, this is for two of us. And I just sliced it up, it's nice and cold. And then I have some romaine lettuce and actually just the leftover potatoes. I didn't feel like making croutons, so I threw the leftover potatoes in there. Not the same as croutons at all, I know. And then I chucked the chicken in. So I decided to put this creamy avocado in just to make things a bit more hearty. And then I whipped up a little tahini Caesar dressing. So that was just tahini, water, garlic, Parmesan cheese, Dijon mustard, anchovies. So just give that a little toss and that's like enough for a huge amount of salad for two people. For day three, I decided to make a spicy coconut noodle soup. So carrots, green onions, broccoli, a lime, some garlic. And then I have some coconut milk, a whole can, and about half of a jar of red curry paste that's been simmering away. And I added the garlic to that too. And I just cooked that for a really long time until the fat from the coconut milk started to float to the top. And then I whisked in about 1 liter of my chicken stock. And then once that got up and boiling, I just threw the carrots in, threw the broccoli in, threw the green onions in. And look at the fatty layer. I love that when you get that like greasy, spicy layer of oil on the top. It's the best. And then in goes the chicken. So this was like the other half of the breast plus like half of the chicken that I had ripped off of the bones. And I like to keep it pretty big. I don't like to chop it too much. And then a couple tablespoons of fish sauce because that's what makes these kinds of soups extra amazing. Gives it a bit of a Thai flavor. And that's looking pretty good. Give it a taste just to make sure it's okay. Oh, except I almost forgot about the lime. Get the lime in there. Make sure you get every drop. Limes are expensive. And then I just have some soba noodles that I put in bowls, and then I just ladled the spicy, coconutty, chickeny soup over the top, and it was so nice. You can use any noodles here. You can use ramen noodles, even spaghetti noodles, or rice noodles. They'd be great. I just had soba noodles, so that's what I used. All right, so we're on to day 4. This one was so delicious. We have garlic, red onion, a chunk of Parmesan cheese, a bunch of cherry tomatoes, some frozen corn, and the rest of the chicken. And chili flakes, because I'm obsessed with chili flakes and I basically put them in everything. So a little bit of olive oil into a skillet. And I have some pasta cooking already. This is gonna be a pasta dish. So putting the red onion and some salt into the olive oil and giving that a little sweat down. And then in goes the garlic. I never add garlic too early because I find it burns really easily and it's just nice to add a little bit later. And then goes the frozen corn. This is just straight from the freezer. Obviously you could use fresh corn, which would be delish. And then the cherry tomatoes. These are the last of the cherry tomatoes for the summer. I'm super sad that tomato season's almost over, but at least we're making good use of them. And then I threw in the chili flakes and weirdly about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. This is kind of a surprise twist ingredient, but it actually really helps make the sauce kind of saucy. So about a cup of chicken broth going in, still from our chicken broth we made the other night. And then that's just gonna reduce down and thicken up, and the juice from the tomatoes is gonna come out and the Dijon is gonna do its work. And then I'm adding in the pasta. I'm using just any short pasta here. I always save some of the salty cooking liquid in case I need it, which in this case I did. And then in goes the chicken. So this is the last of the chicken, the actual meat, as well as some Parmesan cheese. Totally optional, but come on. And then I have some fresh basil that I had in the garden, so that's going in there. Again, it's the last of my basil. Pretty sad about it, but there's always next year. So you'll see that the juices from this, the chicken stock and the mustard and the cheese have all kind of formed this like really glossy, actual saucy texture, consistency. It's not brothy and watery anymore at all. And the tomato juice as well. It's so good. This was the most delicious dinner. I was so happy with it. And if you thought I was gonna only serve half of that or part of that, you were dead wrong, because we're sharing that entire thing. So for day 5, this was the easiest thing ever. This doesn't actually have any of the chicken meat in it because we used it all up, but it doesn't even need it. We're just gonna cook some onions in some olive oil and then add celery and carrots and salt, quite a bit, like a tablespoon, and soften those up. I like to usually put the lid on for this part because I just find it speeds things up a little bit. And then a handful of dried oregano goes in, as well as about a liter of stock. And that's pretty much the last of the chicken stock. It's a really good batch of chicken stock. It adds so much flavor. And then just kind of bring that up to a boil with the lid on. And then the fast cooking veggies. So red peppers cook way faster, so they go in now. Broccoli cooks really fast, so that's going in now. You could use zucchini or any other green as well. I just think I had a lot of broccoli in my fridge this week. And then cooked orzo. I love orzo, and I love it as a soup pasta because it doesn't really fall apart because it's so small, and the way that it's shaped is just kind of optimized for souping, I think. And that is a really, really easy and super delicious soup. I decided to throw in some chili flakes because I always do. And also I forgot garlic in this, or maybe I ran out of garlic, so I threw in some garlic powder at the end, which I love. I actually love garlic powder. My mom's gonna laugh at me because I used to give her a hard time for using garlic powder, but it's good stuff. It's not garlic, but it's also delicious. And then I thought this needed a little extra zing, so I went with some lemon zest on top. And then while I had the grater out, I thought, why not grate some feta into this soup? And it was such a good decision because it made it really hearty and creamy. And you can see that it's really more of a stewy consistency. It's like thick and just very satisfying. And then so I put a little bit more feta on top because why not? Ooh, and a little squeeze of lemon because you can't go wrong with that. So that's 5 whole days of chicken dinners. 1 chicken, 5 days. The best way to make the most out of your groceries is to get as much as you can out of everything you buy. And that is especially true for things like meat and chicken. Chicken's really expensive. And if you're buying packs of boneless, skinless chicken breasts every week, you're spending a lot of money. So my recommendation is to buy 1 chicken and make it last all week long by using a little here and a little there and making the stock and making sure that you don't go overboard with how much you're actually using because you don't really need that much. Like that pasta was like loaded with corn and tomatoes and cheese and only a little bit of chicken, and it's so hearty and satisfying. So I really think that you can get a lot more out of what you're buying if you just kind of get a little frugal with it. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, I'd love it if you'd give it a like. And if you are into cooking videos popping into your feed every Wednesday, be sure to hit the subscribe button because I will make sure to keep them coming.